So that using the Buddhist view, understanding the mind and how it works, and that means we're understanding these delusions and attachments, this cute word, that's addictions. It's just a question of the object, it's a question of how deep it is. So like anything, you have to know your mind. So is it I'm not being asked personal, but I mean, is it like an object you're talking about, or, like what do you mean? See if you can put your teachings on your nice piece of cloth that you've been given. It's auspicious, they say, to stop putting the Dharma on the floor. I mean, Tibetans say to treat the teachings with respect. Sasha, give the man a piece of cloth. He hasn't got a piece of cloth. There you go. Yeah. For Sasha. There you go. It's like an offering for the... So go on. So say more about that question. It's unpack that question.
It's more general, but like you can stop the action, I understand this, but then the craving comes back and comes back and comes back.
Yeah, I understand.
And then you start the action again, like
that's
drinking
right.
or like...
Join the universe. This is called practice. So the thing is, the Buddha's view... Can I have some water, please? Oh, I've got it. Thank you, Sam. And my drug. Hang on, I've got to take a drug.
It's really hot. You want some cold water?
Oh, yes, please. Is this the drugs, all the same?
Yes. There are two different ones. I think you've been taking these, but
they're all the same type. What for, then?
Both for pain.
Which is more heavy? They must
try this one.
All right, okay. I just have to take a drug and a chocolate together. Because I'm supposed to make my stomach conducive, I know.
Wait for the cold water.
I'd better, yes. I'll have to take a chocolate first. I don't want to eat the tablet, it'll taste disgusting, won't it? Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. So, okay. This is why it's hard work. And what we've got to realize is how profoundly deep these delusions go in the mind. That's Buddha's view. So that means the attitude has to be that you're in for the long plan. There's no magic fix overnight. You go for a weekend course, you give up cigarettes. I mean, it depends on the person. I gave up cigarettes overnight and it never bothered me again. So it depends on the object and the person and the time. Other objects, some people struggle their whole lives, Depends, isn't it? Some things. I mean, for me, I've got far more attachment to food than cigarettes. Like, I just don't give up eating attachment overnight to food. It's still there, you understand? So part of the deal is, and it's this whole progressive approach of first controlling your body and speech, harnessing, using your discipline to harness that part. And that's powerful. And it's not enough to say, oh, I'll give up cigarettes, but it's got to be every day training yourself, programming yourself to see the benefits and to want to do it, and every day. And then, and especially we have practices we call purification, and the end part of which is like determination to change. You make the decision. So that every day you watch, like a hawk, every day you do it. That's the first step. Then the next one is the harder work, which is dealing with the attachment itself. And that's what we don't deal with in our culture. You go to AA, it's brilliant. And you give up the object, and that wonderful system, but then we just put it onto something else. Whereas the Buddhist one is you now have the space to go more deeply to deal with the nature of attachment itself. And this is not easy. I promise the word is so simple, but it goes profoundly deep and it's multifaceted. And it might be just for one object. But then if that object gets boring, then we'll just change it to another object and another object and another object. You understand? So it's long term. It's long term.
From my experience, we have a tendency in the West to put it away, but not to
deal with it. That's right, precisely. That's right.
Yeah,
of course it does, because we don't know how to deal with the actual nature of the mind itself, and that's the Buddha's expertise, I would say. So, but the other point to realize is that actually attachment, we usually tend to think it's a problem in the West if the object is very strong. Like if you want to jump on 22 girls every day, you've got a problem. If you want to eat 47 cakes every day, you've got a problem. Or alcohol and heroin, because they're really intense objects. But we don't think of attachment to being seen as a nice boy, attachment to having a perfect house. They're all attachment as well, but there's levels and levels of intensity. So put it this way, in the long term, the Mahayana point of view is we've got attachment until we're highly realized beings, but it lessens, it diminishes. So then you be skillful. So given that we've got attachment, then at least you give up the things that are harmful to you or harmful to others, and you knowing that you've got attachment for a long time, it gets less, then at least the things you do, you make sure you choose things that are really useful to be attached to. So if you like having girlfriends, let's say, but you're used to, because you're a bit self-piteous and ridiculous and you keep choosing horrible girlfriends who beat you up and are mean to you. You understand? Let's say. So maybe you keep your attachment, but you start choosing decent girlfriends who'll support you in your practice and help you become a better person. That's skillful means. If you're going to be attached to a job, being an accountant, let's say you really like your accountancy job, well, don't stop doing the work of accountancy for the gun maker and start being an accountant for a really useful company. Do you get my point? So there's levels and levels of being skillful, and you channel that energy. But to sort of think, I've got to give up all the attachment, don't forget it. It's just ridiculous. You can't. But we've got to know what it means, attachment. We've got to distinguish it. In relationship to people, we've got to distinguish attachment from love. And in relationship to things, we've got to make the distinction between harmful things and not so harmful things. Do you understand my point? It's like progressive, levels and levels. Finally, as you really progress, we've got to give up all attachment. But that's a long way to go, Be skillful. Be skillful. Do you understand? Good. What else, people? Questions that came from your discussions? Well, nothing? Everything was clear, was it? Any questions come up about karma? We've just hardly begun to talk about it. Where are you? Yes. Yeah.
How would you be able to explain to a person who has big sufferings like physical disability?
That's right.
That what that person has
yes.
due to karma?
Right. Equally, forcefully, putting the other point of view, what would you say to a person who's very happy and has got beautiful health to explain to them why they've got that? Because it's the same answer. It's due to their past actions. So the person who's got happiness and money in the bank and lovely friends, that's due to their past not lying and not stealing and their virtue. So it's the same. We never think to explain to a person why good things happen because no one cares why. Just give me more, please. Do you understand my point?
Yeah.
But no, you get the point, though, what I'm making, and it's equally important. But the point is, it's the question of whether the person wants to know. If this person sits in front of you and they're crying, and you don't start jumping karma on them, that would be outrageous. It depends on the person. It depends on Sweetie, listen to me carefully. This is the point. If this person is a random person you've just met, and they haven't asked you, why am I in a wheelchair, you don't start talking, well, because blah, 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 blah. It's only if a person is coming to you and is talking and you're interested in Buddhism, they ask the question, then you talk about it. Do you see my point?
Yeah. How would you explain it therefore to a non-Buddhist person?
If they want to know.
Yeah.
Even most Buddhists don't know. Forget about modern Buddhists. Even most Buddhists haven't got a clue about karma and don't like karma. I would explain it in terms of what I said before. That what Buddha says that whatever we are, whatever we think, whatever we do, whatever happens to us, is the fruit of our past actions. And I mean by that, it's including the good ones. Are you hearing me here? Well, that's the answer. That's the general answer. And if they say, oh, that's a good idea, and then change the subject, then leave it there. If they want to go further, then you discuss. Do you understand? But it's up to whether the person really wants, and most people don't really want to know. Even Buddhists don't like it, Do you understand?
Yeah.
My point?
Yeah.
But the general answer is you have to know about it yourself. The Buddha's view. If you're interested in the Buddha's view, try and understand it. And because it's hard to hear it because we are so shocked when it always comes to negative things, and we're always so shocked. The biggest shock to us is that we are the creators of our own reality. That's the shock, because we all of us have the default belief that we're innocent victims who were made by someone else. Do you agree with that? So that's why karma is a shocking view, because it says that we're in charge, and that's not how we think. And the usual way that karma is presented by most people, by most Buddhists, and how it's interpreted by non-Buddhists is as just exactly the same as terrible, terrible punishment. Because that's how we think about morality. That if you've got suffering, you must have been a bad person. Oh, that's a shocking view, we say, So it takes a while to hear it oneself, and the more we can internalize it and understand it, the more clearly you can present it to other people. But you have to be clear about it. So how do you understand? Do you take it on board as a view that you've got, or are you just out of interest listening to it?
No, well, I'm still struggling understanding how I would be able maybe to explain that whatever happened back.
Well, explain it to yourself, though. So how do you explain it to yourself?
Sorry?
Forget other people. But what's your name? So hang on, wait. I know you are. What's your name? Who? Fabio. So the real question is, how do I describe karma to myself? Forget other people. So talk about yourself. What do you understand?
Yeah, I'm here to learn.
I know.
I'm able to describe it.
You can't yet.
Yeah,
Oh, okay then. Also keep learning.
yeah, sure. That's why I'm asking.
So you want me to talk more about karma?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. You should have said that.
There we are.
Okay. All right. I've presented all the bullet points already. So to understand karma, we have to first understand, take on board the idea that your mind is not physical. And that's a huge one. The first thing people say is, what are you talking about? How can I be supposed to believe that, you know? Well, no one's asking you to believe it. You take it as a view. It's a view that does exist on the planet, coming from Buddhism and the previous Indian views, that we have a consciousness that is not physical. So one takes it as a hypothesis. That's the first one that has to be understood. Because without that, if the mind is the brain, then the whole view of karma, the whole philosophical presentation in all the Buddhist literature over the centuries is an utter load of absurdity. It has no basis. It's nonsense. Do you understand my point? That's the first point, Fabio. So you've got to take the view that your consciousness is not physical and that it didn't begin in your mother's womb. This is absolutely fundamental. Do you understand that point first? And all you can do is hypothesize it, because you're not clairvoyant yet, so you can't prove it. But when you've got single point of concentration and your mind goes to a more subtle level, then you will remember your past life. You will see it, then you can prove it. But until then, it's a theory for us. Do you understand? That's the first point. The second then has to be the question, well, if my mind went from before and comes into my womb now, well, why did it come into that mother's womb? And why have I got certain tendencies? And why does certain thing happens to me? That's the question, isn't it? Why, you know? Well, then that's the Buddha's view. The Buddha's view is that everything we think and do and say leaves seeds in our mind, like I said before. So at the time of conception, we come fully programmed with all those seeds from the past. So then we live out our life and we ripen those seeds. So the first one is the type of rebirth you've got. Now the Buddha would say you getting a human body is like you've won the lottery, you know. So fortunate to have a human life. And then to have the tendencies in here. The second way karma ripens is all your tendencies, which are a bunch of habits. If you have a tendency to lie, be good at music, kill, steal, look at the world. You know, since tiny children, we can even see ourselves, isn't it? That we've got certain tendencies. So the materialist model is I got them from mummy and daddy, and we track it back to mummy, daddy, grandma, grandpa, and the monkeys, isn't it? That's how we do it in the West, isn't it? So it fits as a fairly regular quality, like playing piano or being angry. We can sort of see maybe that mummy and daddy like that. But when you've got extreme examples, you know, like Mother Teresa, there's no evidence that she had a really holy mother, and there's no evidence that Hitler had some wacko mummy who killed millions of Jews. So you can't see the evidence in the past with them. Do you understand my point? So that's where that falls down, I'd suggest. So you take this view that everything comes in the mind. The consciousness is not physical. It's come from past habit, from being in previous lives. You bring it into this present life. Your body is from your own past morality, in our case. You've got tendencies depending on the habit. You might have a habit to be good at music, good at killing, because you've done them before. Lying, you've done it before. Being good at loving, you've done it before. They're habits. They're basically habits. That's the one. That's the way that first way karma will happen. Second way. Third one is the stuff that happens to you. Everything that happens to you. Every second of the day, would you agree something happens to you? Would you agree with that? Every second of the day, something good or something bad happens. The traffic was horrible, the traffic was nice. People smile, people were mean. Every single day, every one of those experiences is the fruit of a past action of yours, necessarily. And then even the environmental, which seems even a more subtle one, how the very physical world itself and the way it impacts upon you, that even too is the result of your past actions. They're the four main things. And that includes all the good things and all the bad things. But we never think of the good things, like I said, only think of the bad things. And why is very fascinating. I think it's very fascinating. It's because of attachment and anger. So when good things happen, it fits attachment. Attachment gets what it wants, so it gets excited. So we assume we deserve it. And I think in our world we have this deep assumption we deserve good things. You know, we just assume we deserve it. We don't think there has to be a cause. We don't care if I deserve it. We just know we assume we deserve it. So when we get it, we just think, well, I deserve happiness. I deserve people to be kind to me. But the second a person is mean to you, you know how you feel. Ego rises up. How dare you do that to me? I don't deserve it. That's how we think. So in terms of deserve and not deserve is meaningless for the Buddha. It's more why the real thing to say is when bad things happen, I get angry and I don't like that. That's at least reasonable. And every time good things happen, I like that and I grasp to get more. So the real problem is attachment and aversion. But we have these misconceptions, Buddha says. Deserve is ridiculous. Like I said, money in the bank, whatever's there, you deserve it. flowers in the garden, they're yours, you deserve it. But we don't have that view when it comes to happiness and suffering. We think it comes from someone else. You understand? So all these are the assumptions we've got deep in our mind, which we have to think about. So now, okay then, so let's narrow down to one more next level about karma. If in general everything we experience, everything we think, everything that happens to us is the fruit of past actions, and we do also know we can divide our lives into happy experiences and suffering experiences in general, can't we? Would you agree with that? Then we better start to say, well, what's the cause of a suffering experience? What's the cause of a happy experience? We need to know that, don't we? That's the crucial piece. In other words, you know that everything is in a garden is the fruit of you sowing seeds. But you've got to know in your garden you've got some weeds and some herbs. Well, you know you want the weeds and don't want the herbs. So we now got to narrow it down. Well, how do I identify a weed so I don't grow it? And how do I identify a herb so I do grow it? That seems reasonable, doesn't it? Well, here we have negative actions and positive actions. And this is where we have to now understand how we create those. This is the basis of understanding karma and the basis of Buddha's view about the mind. So now we look, as I said before, to the view of the mind. We've got negative and positive states of mind. Forget the mechanics, the other bits, you know. We've got states of mind that are neurotic, I-based, fear-based, deluded, and neurotic, and necessarily cause me suffering, and necessarily cause me to do things with my body and speech that harm others. They're called negative actions. And we have good qualities in here, love, compassion, kindness, that are necessarily the source of the things that I do with my body and speech that benefit others. So a virtuous action is an action you do that helps another that's based on a good motivation. A negative action is an action you do that harms another that's based on a negative motivation. That's the principle. You understand? Now let's unpack that, okay? Okay, so there are two things about this. In general, a negative action for the Buddha at this heavier level is where it affects others. So the heaviest negative actions are those that harm others. But he says, and that's why he wants us to, he suggests we don't do them. For our sake, we take the advice of the doctor. But the point is this, and this is the crucial piece. What makes the action I do sow a seed in my mind that's negative, that will ripen as my suffering in the future, is not based upon the action itself only. It's based upon the motivation. So I'll give an example, like a good action. So let's say everybody in the world would agree that an action of generosity would go under the heading positive action. Would you agree? You agree with that? And an action called killing in general is a negative action. You agree? In general, okay. Well, you can imagine a situation when you're walking down the street and there's a homeless person, which is, they're poor, right? And you see them as, you can even have the thought, I'm not going to give any money to that smelly homeless person. You can think that. But 20 francs drops out of your pocket, and they get 20 francs. Well, they're happy. They've got their 20 francs, aren't they? The result was 20 francs. But you created no virtuous karma. In fact, you created negative karma because you thought, I'm not going to give that creepy person money. But your mind wasn't involved in the 20 francs, was it? So that wasn't technically an action. They'll say, oh, thank you. You'll go, what for? I didn't do anything. So you didn't create any virtuous karma. In fact, you even created a negative karma in your mind, at least, because you wanted to be mean and miserly. So do you see my point? They get the 20 francs, but you create no virtuous karma. In just the same way, you could have a mouse in your kitchen, and you don't see it, but you put your foot on it and it dies. You don't even know. How could you say you created the karma of killing? You haven't. The mouse did die, but your mind wasn't involved. So the key point is, when your mind is involved in the action, that's what determines the karma you create. And we do many things when our mind's not involved. We do mostly mindlessly. Do you understand my point? So we'll break that down a bit. So, for example, the action of generosity. There's 4 ways, like I said before, there's 4 ways you can describe these 4 tracks of karma. One is the fully ripened result, or one is the main one, which is the type of rebirth we get. The second one is our tendencies in our mind. The third is our experiences at the hands of others. And the fourth is environmental. Do you understand? So any action can have any of those 4 results. So a complete action of generosity based upon a pure motivation. That means there'd have to be 4 things in place. First, the person, homeless person. Second, your mind involved. The intention, I will give that person 20 francs. Motivation, oh, I have compassion. Generosity. So there's 2 bits, the intention to give it and your motivation that's pure. Do you understand? And they come together. The third, you hand over the 20 francs. Fourth, they get the 20 francs. That's a complete action of generosity. And you will sow a good seed in your mind, go into your main bank vault. It'll multiply those seeds, and one day, eventually, it'll ripen as many happy rebirths. Second, it'll ripen as a tendency to keep being generous. Third, it'll ripen as people giving to you. And fourth, it'll ripen as a very delicious environment. Every karma of every kind, good or bad, has any of those four, and all ripening in different varieties and different intensities. Do you understand? This is the technical explanation of the universe for the Buddha. All right? Does that help a bit? Okay, good. Okay, yes. Yeah. Yes. A bit confused. Start again. The law of karma is what links it all. So consciousness in general is a river of mental moments that never begins and never ends. It just keeps going. But what goes on in it at any given point is because of what you put in there and what you experience. And what you put in now produces the future. Oh, okay, Buddhism doesn't say trees have consciousness. No, okay, so first of all, a sentient being, the term in Tibetan is very nice. Mind possessor. So for the Buddha, there are trillions of mind possessors. An ant, humans, dogs, lions, things we can see on this planet, baby tiny creatures in the earth, little tiny bugs, dust mites. There are trillions of creatures who we can see who move and seems to have some kind of consciousness. They're called sentient beings, mind possessors. But there's also trillions of other mind possessors that we can't see, that are invisible to our eyes, but actually are existing, real beings having real experiences from the Buddhist perspective in different realms of existence. So trillions upon trillions. In fact, even this universe as we know it, there's not an atom of space you won't find sentient beings. Everywhere, pervaded. Okay, that's one point. Second, there's two types of phenomena in the universe, speaking simply. There's matter, and in the Buddhist view, they still use the same old-fashioned model of the four elements. That's still used today. The Tibetan medical system uses that. In the Vajrayana Buddhism, it describes the physical energies in terms of the four elements. It's the entire universe. The world is made of the four elements, earth, air, fire, and water. And that's the matter, and then there are minds. And in the Vajrayana model, Tantrayana, there's these detailed descriptions of the intimate relationship between internal and external, meaning physical and mental. And as I say in those teachings, all minds, like your consciousness, is conjoined with your set of the four elements. And at the moment, like all of us, your gross level of physical is this gross body, but then you've got subtle mind, which we only really experience in dreams, or if we're in a coma, or if you're a great meditator. That's also inextricably linked to the set of the four elements, and even a subtler level of them. So they're the elements. So the point is this inextricable relationship between the four elements and all beings' minds. And that's why in the end we can have environmental karma. Whatever we do in our mind impacts upon the elements and then has an impact upon the external elements as well, and so produces the different things we experience. But in general, a tree is not a consciousness, is not a mind possessor. An ant is a mind possessor. This is a mind possessor. This stuff here is the same stuff as the tree. The difference from the Buddhist perspective would say this is imbued with a personal consciousness that belongs to this stuff. But a tree doesn't have its own personal consciousness. Now, you can't know that until you're clairvoyant. But that's the Buddhist way of saying. A rock is not a sentient being. It is that. Indeed, it is. They are that. Yeah. Yeah, and Buddha would agree, just before we go further, Buddha would agree with that totally from the physical point of view. That yes, it's exactly the same, but a sentient being has a consciousness which is not physical, and that's the distinguishing feature. Are you hearing my point? I'm just giving you Buddha's view. You don't have to agree with it. So the point is the Buddhist. I mean, it's absolutely right. That's the four elements. Your body's the four elements. The trees are four elements. As the entire physical world is made of the four elements. Buddha agrees with that. But the difference between this set of four elements and that cushion, which is the four elements, is it's not imbued with its own consciousness. Your body is imbued with its own consciousness. We can't prove that until we're highly more realized, but that's the Buddhist position. You get my point?
Yes, I'm asking myself, when did consciousness in humans start to arise?
Okay, consciousness never arose. It's always it's beginningless.
Like since we, at the moment, we are able to, like we are aware, we are actually conscious.
Okay, no, you're conscious. No, you began as a human being. What's your name? Jem. How do you spell it? Oh, where's that from? Turkey. Jem. Okay, good. J or ch. J, like a J. Jem. Okay, good, Jem. So then the Buddha's view is that, Jem is made up of the four elements and a consciousness. And it's gross, subtle, and very subtle levels. They're inextricably linked and interdependently work together. What the time of conception is when that consciousness came from before, from a previous life, and joined the egg and the sperm of your mummy and daddy. That's the beginning of Jem. That's second. And all the tendencies that you are now expressing in Jem's life have come from your past habits. So the karma that before you were reborn, a few weeks before your mummy and daddy hopped into bed or wherever they hopped, to create the condition for Jem to come, you're in a previous body. Even before you stop breathing, these four main sets of karma ripen for you. The one that must have been very strong morality from non-killing in particular, as Lama Zopa says, probably practiced in the context of past spiritual practice and even created by you probably in the context of keeping vows of morality. That was the seed that was triggered even before you stopped breathing in the past life, which already programmed you to go to Jem's mummy and daddy. Second, at the same time, all the tendencies in Jem's mind, your habits, your tendencies, you wish to be a spiritual person, your whatever it is in your mind, they also were triggered to become part of your personality. The third one is all the experiences at the hands of others, starting with your mummy and your daddy, and since up until now, how you've been seen and treated by others. All those karmic seeds were triggered. And even the fourth one, the way the physical environment impacts upon you. All those seeds were there ready. And then your mind found its way eventually to the new mummy and daddy when they hopped into bed, and now all those seeds are ripening in you and your life. And every second since you're born, you are sowing new seeds in your mind that will produce future lives. Every second of the day. That's the Buddha's explanation, roughly speaking. Okay? All right. Yeah.
So let's take our consciousness through our lifetimes.
Yes.
Several lives. So how you see the influence of our parents and grandparents?
Yes.
You said they only give us the physical body.
That's right.
But there are some techniques in other traditions
Yes.
that you kind of look at
Ancestors.
how they live.
Yes.
So you can then kind of understand your
Yes.
behaviors.
I understand. I would say that's to do with the physical. Okay, the materialist philosophical view is that one. We only look to the past. Buddha looks to the past because our own past. But the West, we look to the past, the only past we've got is through the physical, through mummy, daddy, grandma, grandpa, isn't it? That's all we can do. Through the genes, the DNA, we go right back to the monkeys, and that's how we try to interpret the way we are now. But that's, for me, confusing, using Buddha's understanding, the mental and the physical. So, that's one point. But the second point, it is evident that we are very highly interdependent beings. Every tiny thing that happens to us from the outside impacts upon us. It's clear if my mother hits me every day, it's obvious it's going to have an effect on me. But the point is this. In our modern in the materialist culture, we think mummy hitting me every day is the reason why I'm angry. But the Buddha would say, no, mummy hitting me every day triggers my own tendency for anger. The tendency is mine. Many people get hit, but they don't have anger. They get sad, they get fearful, but no anger. So that's the difference. Buddha implies we've got this, our own stuff is there. So the white supremacist boy I mentioned, he read Hitler. But because he already had those imprints in his mind that fitted with Hitler's thinking, then he went like a magnet. Do you see my point? So that's the point the Buddha's factoring in. Everything that happens out there, of course it plays a role. Look at my example of me when I was a little girl. I was a maniac because the house was a maniac. Drama, people, not enough beds, no money, crazy father. There's enormously powerful impact upon me, but then it fed my chaos. It fed my anger, my craziness. Give me another condition, I became like a saint, you know. Do you understand? So external, of course it plays a role. And that's why we've got your question. If we have any self-respect, we will recognize certain conditions, or you with addiction, let's say, not yours, but anybody's, we'll recognize the conditions that trigger our delusion. So we'll respect ourselves and keep away. And keep ourselves in good conditions, around nice people, and a nice job so that it encourages your virtue. That's intelligence. Do you understand? Whereas we just tend to blame the outside for everything. But this is a way more nuanced kind of view. You understand my point? Yes, sweetheart. Sure. Yes, darling.
I like the fact how you can explain or relate with the Christian point of view.
Yes.
Morality.
Yes.
You were going to this Catholic.
I was a Catholic, yeah, and I was in love with God. I wanted to be a nun when I was 12, you know.
Did you ever go back to school as a nun?
I did. Well, the first time I went, when was it? No, it was very good, actually, very nice. We had a reunion of our girls. I mean, I didn't go till about the 40th anniversary, right, because I'm now old. And I remember one girl was a bit shocked. I mean, all old ladies by that point. My class, you know. But one was a bit shocked, but all the others were so happy. And then in the end, the school did, it was this a French order of nuns, the Sacré-Cœur nuns. They've got many convents, I don't know about here, but they've got them in France and other countries around the world. And I remember they featured me in the special 150th anniversary of a person, because I work with people in prison, and people seem to be moved by that, you know. So they featured me as one of their special students. So there you go, they didn't seem to mind. Isn't it? What else? Yes.
About karma. So just as a utopian situation, that I did something bad to another person in a past life. So my karma is that I get something back because I did some negative action. But then if everybody would decide they don't do bad things,
That's right. Yes.
I couldn't
Get the result. No, you would. No, you would. I mean, no, it's well, no, I mean, simplistically it sounds like that. But I mean, don't hold your breath for a start. I mean, I know, darling, it's a really simple way to put it. And if you just keep using the logic of seeds and fruits, it's true. If you and I have a really bad relationship, and this is very common. Let's say you and I have a really bad, we hate each other, we're mean, we lie, we kill each other, we're horrible, and then we leave each other. But I never forgive you, but you forgive me and you love me, and next time you'll see me, you won't be affected. You won't be hurt by it, but I'll still experience terrible suffering. But somehow even maybe it won't be you directly doing it to me. I mean, it's so nuanced how it does work. Because the real point is whatever's in the mind, it will ripen some way or other until I clean it up. That's the real point.
So then it wouldn't be directly from other people.
Well, no, it can't be. I mean,
Also environment or situation.
in some ways or other, I will still suffer at your hands. I mean, maybe I'll just get still angry with you, even though you did nothing wrong to me, because I haven't finished my part of it. I mean, it's highly nuanced. The real point is, the work has to be here. We have to change our bit, and I can't expect you to change yours. So that's why, you see, that's something very interesting when we talk about purification. There's a practice we do at the end of every day. And Lama Zopa says we're insane not to do it every day. So in terms of practice, like junior school grade 1 entry level, at least he says the most urgent level is back off and don't harm sentient beings. At least stop sowing more negative seeds, the heaviest kind. At least that is already fantastic. For your sake. Because that'll purify your lower realm karma, that'll purify bad things happening to you, that'll purify your tendency to keep doing them. It's really simple and powerful. But the next level is to purify, to start working on all the billions of seeds we've already planted that haven't yet ripened. And we don't want them to ripen a suffering baby, so we've got to start putting atomic bombs under them. And that's the purification practice. So that practice is very practical, and we'll talk about. There's 4 steps in it. You regret, you acknowledge you did that dumb thing. You regret it because you don't want the future suffering. You then, second, you rely upon the doctor who'll give you the methods, and that's the Buddha really. And then you have compassion for the people you harmed. Third, you do a practice to purify it. But fourth, most important, you make a decision to change. Whereas in our culture, and this is coming very much from the Christian teachings, which I'm not complaining about, but it can be misunderstood. In the second step for the Buddhist, you refer to the Buddha as your doctor. You've done something dumb, you've eaten poison, you killed somebody, let's say, analogy. So you regret it because you don't want the future suffering. The regret is like compassion for yourself, not guilt. Then you think, well, God, who can I turn to? Quick, where's the doctor to give me the antidote? Well, that's our relationship with the Buddha. He's like a doctor. Whereas if I'm a Catholic, I turn to God to purify me. God has to forgive me. So forgiveness is powerful. But that's our whole process in forgiveness is God, what purifies me is God forgiving me, isn't it? Whereas in the Buddhist one, you forgive yourself, but you rely upon Buddha's medicine. In other words, you don't go to the doctor and beg her to forgive you for smoking cigarettes and please stop me getting cancer. No, it's not her job. She gives you the methods that you use to stop getting cancer. That's the Buddhist approach. So I think in our daily lives we can misunderstand, misuse forgiveness. So about you and I got this lousy relationship, and I've been mean to you. I'm going to work in the morning. You're my friend, and we live together or whatever. And I'm feeling all this guilt. Oh, she's going to hate me. And what's your name? Elena, I'm guilty. I'm panicking because you're going to give me up and stop hating, stop loving me. So I'm all, oh, Elena, I'm so sorry. I ring you on the phone. So sorry, Elena. Please forgive me. And all I'm waiting for you is to say, it's all right, Rabina. I still love you. I forgive you. And then I go, oh, phew, I'm off the hook again. That's misusing you. If I keep bad-mouthing you every day and then get you to forgive me, but I don't change, if you're really being my friend, you should say, Rabina, I'm happy to forgive you, but you've got to start making a decision to change, baby. And that's where you've got to take responsibility. So the fourth step is I've got to decide I'll stop bad-mouthing you. I will not bad-mouth you for 24 hours and you keep getting better. Then it's valid to forgive me, but we misuse forgiveness. I use you to make me feel better. That's very naughty. Do you understand my point? Because it's not forgiveness that makes me purify. My own inner work is what does purification. Because what if you don't forgive me? Then it doesn't matter. That's just your problem. I'm purified. And that's why I saw with my friends in prison. Kill somebody, let's say. And they're kind of the animal of the earth. They're going to go to hell forever, so what's the point? They're also completely depressed and guilty. And the ones who like Buddhism are so uplifted by this view. Because the person you've killed can't forgive you, can they? They're dead. So then they think, well, what can I do? I might as well go to hell. Whereas if they know that they can clean up their part of it, this is really powerful. This is beneficial, actually. It gives us great courage.
But sometimes I think it's even harder to forgive yourself if you get the absolution
That's right.
from the other person, kind of thing.
Well, but that's what I'm meaning. It's like, but if you analyze the Buddhist view, that's not enough. You've got to make the change in yourself. And the first step is regretting it. It's not a question of forgiving yourself. We can say it like that, but the real one of regret is, well, you know what? I did badmouth, what's your name? Elena. I did badmouth Elena. Not, oh, well, it's not my fault, poor Elena's mean to me, or, no, I did badmouth Elena. And you know what, Rabina? I say to myself, I'm sick of this habit. I don't want to keep growing this habit. I don't want to be bad-mouthed in the future. So you've got to own it as yours and with compassion for yourself, be sick of it. That's the first step, and that's so powerful. Then what can I do about it? You rely on the Buddha, you use some kind of practice. It's like medicine, and I have compassion for you, whom I've harmed. Then I do the practice, and then I vow to change. It's a very internal process. And then it's easy to forgive or be forgiven if you need to, but you've done the inner work. Because we can see ourselves, you can tell me 50 times, you're really nice for a person, Rabina, I do love you, but I hate myself so much I'll never believe it. Well, it's exhausting forgiving me if I never sort of do anything. I've got to do the work internally. We've got to own it ourselves. Do you understand? Yes.
Christianity, there's term Holy Spirit.
Who?
Holy Spirit.
Yes, that's right, the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost, yes. That's right, the Holy Ghost.
Is there a similarity in the Buddhism?
You could argue there is. Okay, let's look. I mentioned before here to Fabio about the different levels of the four elements. And so the universe is, this is the Vajrayana, the more advanced teachings describe it like this. We've got gross physical energy, which is this body, inextricably linked with the gross consciousness, which is the sensory consciousness, and our conceptuality and feelings and emotions. This is at this gross level. Now we've got subtle consciousness, which we only experience when we dream, right? And that subtle physical energy, which you can't see with your eyes, but the subtle components of the physical energy, and this is related to the Tibetan medical system. The subtle wind energies coursing in your body, which is similar to yoga, and then inextricably linked with your subtler level of mind. And then you've got extremely subtle level, inextricably linked with an extremely subtle level of physical and mental. This is a whole different lot, okay? Now, when your mind becomes an enlightened mind, a Buddha, free of all the delusions, full of all the goodness, you are only the pure, subtle, unmanifest, all-knowing, all-compassionate, all-wise consciousness. It's a bit like the concept of God. Omniscient, pervading the universe, knowing everything. But the Buddha would say every single person can become their own Buddha. So that's the pure, unmanifest aspect of enlightened consciousness. Now, that mind, out of compassion, manifests in bodies to help sentient beings, okay? So one obvious type of body is the gross body that you and I can see. So the Buddha, Mr. Buddha, back 2,500 years ago, he is a manifestation of the Buddha mind in a gross body that you and I can see and communicate with. But the Buddha also manifests in a subtler body, a subtler energy, subtler light that only the great meditators can see in their meditation. That's the equivalent of the Holy Spirit, of the Holy Ghost. Does that help? It's a pleasure. I would say, speaking loosely. I did a conference in Melbourne at the Catholic University a few years ago. I had a 20-minute slot to talk, and I didn't know what I was going to talk about. And just before I arrived, I looked up one of the dictionaries for the definition of God. And it said 3 qualities: omniscient, infinite wisdom, infinite compassion, infinite power. Well, that's the definition of a Buddha. So my talk was the similarity between the definition of God and Buddha, according to Buddhism. I don't know if they liked it or not, but and the differences. Because, the Christian teaching is there's only one of those that's always been that had no causes and is the source of everything else. Whereas the Buddha's view is every consciousness, which has always been existing, can become that one. And they don't create things because we don't need creating. So it's a big difference in many ways, but many similarities. Do you understand? Okay. So the essence of what I'm talking so far, the wisdom wing, the junior school and high school, understanding this law of karma. And keep remembering, it's highly articulate, it's deeply dealt with in all the literature, explained in vast depth in the literature. I joke and say it wasn't made up by the hippies in the 1960s, and it's a highly sophisticated explanation of the universe. That's a big surprise to us in the West because we think it's a bunch of idiots, who think about karma like stupid, But it's the same level of clarity, like on the scientific view, but it's internal. And it's been around for thousands of years. So then Buddha came along and he doesn't disavow that view, but he's got his own take on that view. But this is the fundamental way the world is and what causes happiness and why suffering and why here and why this and why that. That's explained in this philosophical views about karma. It's very. But the key way to think about it is in terms of experience in your own daily life, So using the analogy of a garden, your life is your garden. And it's a very powerful, simple one. And whatever is in your life, without exception, can only, Buddha says, can only be from what you put into that garden in before. Whereas the view, think about it, the view we have is so deep. And this is the irony of ego. It's the view of the victim. We really do believe that there's 2 human beings, our wacky mummy and daddy, with their delusions and their problems, decided to create another person. I mean, that is the weirdest idea, And then they give you anger, and they give you jealousy, and they give you badness, and they give you goodness, that view, and they give you bad conditions and good conditions and poverty and craziness and sickness. I mean, that's what we believe. We think it's scientific truth. All Buddha's saying is, well, I've got an argument here. Excuse me, I would suggest it's a load of rubbish. He didn't say that. You get my point. So it needs unpacking intelligently, and that never occurs to us because it's the one thing we take as an absolute given. And that informs all of our view in daily life. But the essence of it, from the negative point of view, is that it's the view of a victim. We say, I didn't ask to get born, it's not my fault. But that's exactly what that view says. Buddha says, don't be ridiculous, of course it's your fault. But all the good is your fault too. That's the point, But we hear it in heavy terms. Bad, guilt, blame, fault, deserve. That's what's heavy. They're not the words they use in Buddhism, And that's why we have so much attachment and so much anger. This is the interesting point. I mean, look at the idea. I said you would never look in your bank and say, how dare there be no francs in my bank. You would never say that because you know What's in your bank is equal to what you put there. It's sort of obvious. The garden the same. It's such a simple analogy. Our life is the same. This takes time to internalize, you know. That everything, a person's mean to you, a person's kind to you, it's your karmic appearance, as Lama Zopa says. And also the point that is shocking, and I'm stating it more clearly, if Buddha says this is a natural law. So what do we mean by that? Well, in the world, if we take the view of creator religions, we know we've got two main types of laws. We've got God's law, and we have natural law. Buddha only has natural law. Of course, there's like a relative level of Buddha's law. You behave the rules in the house and don't do this and don't. But from the point of view of the universe, no such thing as Buddha's view. He didn't create anything. He has used his intelligence. Clearly, he's describing a level of mind that's subtler than one we would describe, that has the ability to cognize phenomena that we cannot cognize with our grosser level. We have to take this as our hypothesis here. That subtle consciousness, which you can get with single point of concentration, can see the past, can see the future, can see the minds of others. That's what capability is. This is not existing in our modern psychology, not at all. We're cynical about it. But it's all there, described in the text. I mean, I'm talking about this stuff for years. I mean, it takes time because it's so against the natural view we have. I know when I first heard the teachings, I mean, that was the piece that had been missing in my life. I felt really attracted to that idea of karma. But it takes all these years of me talking about it, trying to practice it, and still it's hard to apply, because when someone's mean to you, the victim just rises to the surface. How dare you do that to me? I don't deserve it. That's the instinct of anger. And that's why it's very interesting if you know these Tibetans who've been kind of programmed with these teachings all their life, the default mode for them is karma. That's been their worldview for thousands of years, coming from Asia. That's the one they know. That's what they've been brought up with. Like we've been brought up with a materialist view. So I remember this story. I remember 2003, Richard Gere invited 20 former prisoners to New York to meet His Holiness. He'd organised the teachings. And he decided all the prisoners had people who've done meditation and Buddhism in prison. So he also invited people like me who worked with people in prison. I ran Liberation Prison Project since like 96 or something, and then gave it up in 2009. So in 2003, I went to New York. We had this lovely meeting with all these prisoners, 20 of them, male, female, a cross-section of all the Americans, you know, and all talking about their suffering in prison, the dramas, the injustice, the racism, the you-know-what. Pretty heavy in America. But he also invited 2 young Tibetan nuns who'd been incarcerated for a couple of years for being Tibetan nuns, for God's sake. They don't even kill flies, you know. And they were tortured, sexually abused for a couple of years. Well, they were telling their story. So my sense is that when they were telling their story, you probably could deduce, if you wanted to, that all the others would imagine that their physical suffering alone, sexual abuse and constant torture, was kind of heavier than the rest of theirs, you know. And second, though, what was surprising, I'd say shocking, and this is our view, that they weren't angry. Now, we don't trust that in our culture. We really don't trust that, you know. Because we take anger as a given. We take these emotions as normal parts of a normal person. And this is where if we unpack all these emotions, we get to see how they're part of this really elaborate set of viewpoints we have deep in our bones about who made us, where we come from, what is good, what is bad, what is fair, what is not. But we don't question these assumptions, you know. So there are these young women, not angry. Sad, tears, yes. But we don't trust that. We think, oh, anger's healthy, you know. But listen to this. Listen to anger. As I said before, put words to anger. And we all have this deep in our bones. How dare you do that to me? I don't deserve it. Is this not instinctive? Is it not a natural response when people are mean to us? That shows how deep anger is in the mind, which shows how deep the instinctive view that I didn't ask to get born, that I'm an innocent victim, that someone else made me. Now, if you want to really follow that through, and that's not being negative about Christianity, that also follows there. God didn't consult me. No one consulted me and said, can I make you? Except we don't like to criticise God, you know. We love to criticise Mummy and Daddy. Do you understand my point? So it's an interesting philosophical view, this view that we're made by someone else. It's very fascinating, this. The Buddha doesn't have that view. Hang on a second, just a second, darling, it won't be long. Let me finish this little scenario, then let's discuss it, yeah. So these young women, being brought up with karma, part of their life, internalizing it, studying it, using it, and applying it in their daily life. Not just keeping it as some theory in their head, you know, but internalizing it, using it to interpret why this is happening to us. So when they have the view of karma, like with them, they don't have the view, why is this happening to me? I don't deserve it. This is heavy duty for us, you know. And in just the same way, before I finish the story, if let's say when for all of us good things happen, which is what happens every day, but we never, ever say to ourselves, when a person in the shop smiles at us, when the person in the street lets us, you know, helps us across the road, or lets us pass first, or the bank gives you credit instead of not giving you credit. We take it for granted. We never think, wow, why did that good thing happen to me? We never think that. That's because we assume, this is attachment, that we deserve good things, and we assume we don't deserve bad. They are false assumptions for them. They're based on false philosophy. They're based on the view of being the innocent victim who was made by someone else. This takes time to unpack. So these young women, one of them at the end, tears. And of course, she said, we had compassion for our torturers, because we knew we must have harmed them in the past, and because we know they will suffer in the future for what they did to us. So in other words, that level of compassion, which is the Buddhist view of compassion, which we'll talk about, is pretty intense. That is based on understanding karma. The only way you can have that view, if you have the view that we've all met countless times, been good to each other countless times, been bad to each other countless times, then that's the only way that explains, you know, that. A friend of mine, Jigdral, who, this is 30 years ago when he escaped from Tibet, 70s, I always tell these stories. I should tell more stories. I get bored probably, you get bored. He'd escaped from Tibet, and he was born in, anyway, he was part of the uprising, the mini uprising in Tibet in 87. The first one really since 59 of any kind of notable newsworthiness, you know. And it was all the monks and nuns who demonstrated. They're all demonstrating. They got arrested, tortured, chucked into prison, killed. You know, it was a terrible time. So he was in a demonstration. He got arrested, got tortured, was released, and he got out again, did another demonstration. Then a friend had his head blown off. Then he thought he'd better escape. You know, so he escaped to Nepal and he went to Kopan Monastery. And he was telling me the story. And since he left, his father was murdered, brother was murdered. This suffering, you know, and there were tears again. And I said to him very casually, I said, Jigdral, do you ever get angry? And he answered equally casually and laughed and said, Rabina, what for? It's our own fault. Now that's shocking to us, right? Those words are so shocking. All he meant was, hey, Rabina, I've got the view of karma, baby, and I know why it's happening, so I don't say, why is it happening? Meanwhile, you get on with dealing with it, so you don't get angry. This is intense. But this is the logic, the relationship between our emotions and the viewpoints deep in our minds about the way the world is. But it's all big stuff, you know. Are we communicating here? Yes. Sorry, in a minute. So I forgot. What's her name? Who? Who? Oh, Gerhard. Of course it is. I remember. In a tick, Stefani has jumped in. Hang on. Go on.
People are mean to us, and do we have to understand why is that specific person mean to us in that specific
Well, it would help you.
Or should we
No.
on that, or
Yeah.
just try to embed the knowledge that
I understand. Yes.
that's happening to us because
I understand. Well, you know, I understand. I think the first principle is just get the principle clear. So if you see one little weed pop up in your garden, if you know the principle that it's called a weed and it's a thing you don't want to grow, so you don't have to remember what day and what time you grew it. Who cares? You interpret it. If you get too many, you know, from too much chocolate and you come out with all this yuck on your skin, you don't have to remember which chocolate on which day. You know that the principle is enough. When you're clairvoyant and advanced, you will know which day. That's more advanced, but the principle's enough, isn't it? The fruit is there because you planted it. That's the first fundamental point. That's the main one. The real learning is that one. You don't have to remember which one. It doesn't matter. Absolutely. But based on the logic that I must have done it. I must have caused it, you know. In other words, another way of putting the view of karma, you know, say if... Erhard. No, Yeah, Erhard, let's say he's my boyfriend, and Erhard is mean to me. Well, the usual victim view says, how dare he do that to me, I don't deserve it, which implies I'm an innocent victim, which implies it has nothing to do with me. Whereas if I have the view of karma, it's here we go again. He did do it, he was mean to me, but guess what, I must have done the first punch, sort of thing like that. You have to own the first punch. Rather than thinking, I remember one time I was, again, another story I tell, when I was a radical feminist, back in the 70s in London, and my policy was, I was a very sincere radical feminist. Any man who insulted me, which means to say praise my chest, so I had very nice chest, in the street, by saying things, I would go up to him and shout very loud and insult him and insult some part of his body, and I might also punch him. I know that was my policy. I was very sincere, okay. I wasn't trying to be mean. I was just trying to be I was trying to be a sincere. I didn't mind trouble, you see. I didn't mind upsetting the apple cart. Do you understand what we say in English? I didn't mind that. Do you understand? Do you understand? Oh, upset the apple cart. I didn't want to make trouble. I didn't mind conflict. And I felt it was right, So this particular point, this one day, normally the guys I hit or insulted, they just became embarrassed and didn't do anything, But this particular fellow hit me back. I punched him in the nose, and his fish and chips went flying, It was this Greek part of London. And I remember he started chasing me down the street, so I ran away, and he got me, and he punched me back, and my glasses broke, my earrings broke. But the point is, I felt quite respectful to the man. I thought I admired his courage, I wasn't upset at all. Now, you can imagine if I burst into tears and all the guys drinking their ouzo in the cafes, and I'd say, oh, he hit me, look, he hit me. Well, Robina, we did see you hit him first. So karma is it's a several lives between punches. That's the problem. Do you understand? Just like that. But the same with the goodness. We never apply the goodness one. Goodness is incredible. Because every minute of the day, most of us, if we're normal people like you and me, we have good things happening. No one's chucking you out on the street yet. You've still got a house to live. You've still got food to eat. The air's still delicious. People are kind to you. You've still got a job. I mean, this is like miraculous. This is the fruit every second of your past virtue, your past generosity, your morality, your kindness. Even if people believe your words. I mean, a person says, where's Smith Street? Oh, it's around the corner. They don't say, how dare you lie to me? They believe you. That's because you haven't told lies before. Or that's the fruit of your past non-lying. But we take it for granted. So we're not really using karma. We're just then bad things and we get all full of guilt. This is rubbish. We should be blissed out every day that anything good happens, It's the fruit of our virtue. And what's the conclusion from that? I must keep planting more virtue. If you look in your garden and it's full of roses and veggies, you don't just go, aren't I lucky? You say, wow, I must keep, then you eat them all up and then there's nothing left. No, that's just greed. That's hubris. You're so delighted in these roses and veggies and you never forget it's the fruit of your hard work. So you keep eating them and they're delicious and grow more. You see the weeds, you know you don't want them, you pull them out and never plant them again. It's such a simple analogy, but it really takes time to internalize this view, if we choose to use it. No one's forcing us to, You can continue blaming other people if you like. It's your call. What else? People's questions. Where are you? Oh, yes, Erhard, you. Come on, boyfriend, what's your question?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what karma we have. But,
there you go. Who knows?
No, serious.
Yes.
Now, look, as a topic I really deal since many, many decades in my life
Yes.
is with the topic of coincidence or chance. I'm pretty familiar with the law of karma. I have dealt with a lot of things in my life, especially through my blindness, and I don't consider myself not a victim anymore.
I understand, yes, exactly.
Still, there are sometimes things happening where I have difficulty just to explain it with the law of karma.
Oh, really? So tell me, give me an example.
Well, for example, if I just walk in the door, that's for me just chance or coincidence.
Sorry, what do you mean just walk in a door? You mean knock the door?
Yeah.
Oh, bump into a door?
Yeah.
No. Okay, in one sense, it's true. Most of what we do is we seem to just float along and do them. But if you take the simple view that whatever you label unpleasant is the fruit of a negative action. and whatever you label pleasant is the fruit of a virtue. That's the most fundamental one. So 1,000 times a day, you can put it simply this way, Erhard, your attachment. You see, attachment's the one that drives us at the moment in samsara. And attachment's a junkie that that has to manipulate to get all the nice things happen. You know, the food at the right time, the money at the right time, no doors in the way, not falling over. That's what attachment's job is. And only because we've got attachment, Erhard, would we get unhappy when you meet the door or don't, or fall off the step or don't get the person be kind to us. So then every millisecond, if you label it, okay, so let me add more to this. There's another state of mind that's in the third category of states of mind. They're the ones under the heading called neutral, which I like to call mechanics. And one in there, one's called concentration, one is called good memory. There are many, many, many of these, the mechanics. Now, one of these also, which sounds curious to us to call it neutral, is a word called feeling. And this is a fundamental one. It comes into the 12 links of Buddha's description of the reality, of the whole universe, how we create reality. One is called feeling. And in our life, in any day, we have either a pleasant feeling, an unpleasant feeling, or a neutral feeling. But for this purposes, let's forget the neutral. They're boring. So we all know that if you think simply, having attachment and having aversion, being ordinary samsaric beings, we only want the pleasant feelings, and we do not want the unpleasant feelings. So something as mild as knocking the door to the most intense of being cut into pieces while you're conscious, that's called unpleasant feelings. You accept my point, in theory? Every time the smallest thing, like a breeze on a hot day, to the most intense, blissful, joyful feelings. Every millisecond of the day, there is a feeling, and it's either pleasant or unpleasant. And it can be through in the mental consciousness, but it can also be through in our sensory consciousness via our body. Now, we know another word for those two is happiness and suffering. You with me? They're very dramatic words, happiness and suffering, but pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling sound more basic. But that's essentially it. So every millisecond of the day, if we added up the number of pleasant feelings we've had today, using the Buddhist view, that means our attachment just got what it wanted. But nothing wrong with that, because every one of those pleasant feelings is necessarily the fruit of a virtuous seed you planted in your bank vaults countless lives ago. As many moments as you can count in today's experiences that you can label pleasant, and there are variations of them, and that's from virtuous actions. Very simple. One of your virtuous actions, like popped out of your ATM, and it just ripened as a pleasant feeling. Every time an unpleasant feeling arises, that is the fruit of a non-virtuous action. And there's probably you count 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 a day, because it's moment by moment. So that technical point of view. Now, practice. So, okay, if you're a victim, how dare the door be there, it's not my fault, then you just get angry and you create more karma and more suffering. If you're working with it, which you are, then you go, karma ripened, what to do? One less debt to repay, as one of my Jewish rabbi Kabbalah friends said. Every time something bad happens, great, one less debt to repay. In other words, you use the transforming problems approach, the bodhisattva's approach. Every time something bad happens, that's one less negative karma to ripen. So that would be the interpretation. You with me?
Yes, I understand, but that just means in a Buddhist point of view, things like charms doesn't exist.
No, can't. In the same way that if botany is a natural law, how can something be random? How can something that goes on in that garden not fit in the law of botany? That's the way to put it. And if it is a natural law, that's a logical deduction. It can't be random. It can't not fit into the law. It's a very shocking concept because we're not used to thinking this way. But it's like that, isn't it? If it is a natural law, which is what the Buddha's saying, that it occurs and no one runs it and it's not punishment and not reward. That's why they say we're really the greatest practitioners. You're watching your mind, your body and speech like a hawk every second, because every one of our actions of body, speech and mind sow seeds. Like you'd be a good gardener, you wouldn't just randomly chuck seeds into the garden. You've got to know what seeds you're planting so you know the fruit you're going to get, isn't it? It's absolutely not chance, can't be. Do you understand the point? Yeah. Yeah. It is tough. Exactly right. Yeah. You know, it's really true. It's a shocking view, actually, because we can see the way we respond every day to things, you know. Go on in notes. Yeah, go. Yeah. Oh, really? Why? What do you mean? What?
And that people that are actually connected to each other and are begging on the street
Oh, sorry, it's got to start again. We've lost you. Start again.
So, people homeless on the street,
Yes.
basically half of them, or less about that, they're like a part of a scheme. They're
Okay.
taking in top
Okay.
of their life.
Fine. Okay.
Am I
Then.
feeding an industry or
Okay.
anything?
Yeah, that means you just got to have wisdom, isn't it? Compassion is the wish to help. You've got to have that. But wisdom is the ability to know that what you do will help and be based on real wisdom. That's the best action to do. So given that, that you not have the wisdom of clairvoyance to see the minds of all these homeless people, or don't have the clairvoyance to see anybody's mind for that matter, you do what you do is the right thing for you at that moment to create a moment of generosity. What else can you do? You're not in charge of the world. Like it's almost as if, when your boss gives you your salary, they didn't put a little in their contract, as long as you don't use your salary to use guns, to have girlfriends, to cheat on your wife, to drink heroin, to eat bad food, to be a meat eater. They don't give you any qualifications like that. That's your business. You've got a contract with your boss to do the work well, and they'll pay you, and they mind their own business what you do with your money. It's the same with a homeless person. You see the person, you make a decision, I'm going to be generous, and you mind your own business. That's my approach. If you see a person about to buy a gun and needs another $5, don't give them $5. But if you have enough wisdom to know it is not beneficial for that person, but we don't have that level of wisdom, so you do it with a pure heart, the wish to help. That's it. What more can you do? What do you think? Still problem. Why? And you're trying to control everything, and you can't.
I'm afraid I'm just pushing that person to see more of the
You didn't hear a word I said. No, you didn't, because you wouldn't say that if you did. That's like your boss discovering you're a heroin addict. But am I paying him a salary? Maybe I shouldn't pay him a salary because he eats heroin. He can't not pay you a salary because your agreement is you do this much work and he pays you. Come on, you just got to decide to make a decision. It's not your business what he does with his money. It's not your business. Somebody's so arrogant. It's not your business. It is not your business. You have to wish to be generous. You just be generous. You can't control everything that goes on after there, which is what you're sort of implying we ought to do, You understand? My feeling. But use your wisdom. Be reasonable. If you really believe a person's cheating you, and even then if they're cheating you, all the more reason to be humble to give them money. Out of humility. Please cheat me. Here, take my $5 and go and, do something else. So there's many reasons why it's good to do. We want to be in charge of everything, as long as you, have a banana. They don't want your bloody banana. They want your francs, Do you understand? We're so patronizing. I remember in San Francisco when I'd go walking at night and I'd see all the homeless people, the drunk people, the people, this guy in a wheelchair with no clothes on in 10 below freezing with his clothes off, completely alcoholic and heroin addict all in one. What could I do to him? Not give him $10? Give me a break, Come on, please. Don't be so moralistic. But be intelligent at the same time. What can you do? For example, if you're in Bodh Gaya and you start being generous, here's, take my rupees, you will get mobbed and your money will be ripped out of your pocket and all your possessions as well. Be intelligent. Use your common sense, Do you understand? All right, people. Is it tea time or going home time? I'm a bit confused. But what did it say on the thing? 10 to 4 or 10 to 5? 5. Oh, did it? You can go home now if you like. I talk fast. If I had my iPad, which I don't, I didn't bring it, so I could have read you from Lama Yeshe to make you happy. Has somebody got... Oh, no, I haven't got it. Wherever I look, I haven't got it. What to do?
One more question.
Yeah, go on then.
What is intuition from a Buddhist point of view?
Or tell me what you think it is.
I think it's a feeling, it's a subtle feeling or kind of a memory from past life which triggers in this right moment, triggers like a hidden memory,
Yes.
which I experienced already.
Okay.
And it gives me this feeling of, oh, this is right or wrong.
Okay. All right. Well, okay, let's look at it. It could be that, but because it's called intuition, I don't think it follows that it's wise. If you could say that white supremacist who read Hitler, wow, I felt I'd come home. Like he would have said, if he talked this way, intuition just felt right. That was wrong. For example, or this is how karma and feeling, where we're talking about feeling, this thing of feeling rising every second, pleasant or unpleasant. This is plays a huge role in the way we create karma and the choices we make. So, another example I always talk about, this boy, a little boy is a fisherman. And so in the same way that one little boy had compassion, due to past non-killing, got born in this life with the wish not even to kill the light in his own head, the other little boy, age 3, 4, 5, went fishing for the first time and fell in love with fishing. So what happens is this. He's got the killing karma in his mind from the past lives being in the lower realms, the Buddha would say. He exhausted that karma, the main karma. He got a human birth, like a miracle. But then he hadn't purified all aspects of the killing, which now in this life will become residual results of the main karma. So he's born with a tendency to kill again. So the moment he went fishing, what happens is this. The karmic imprint is there. As soon as he met the condition called fishing, that triggered, it's like triggered a memory of it, like you said, and then instantly triggered a really pleasant feeling from having done it before. From a really pleasant feeling. And the next millisecond, attachment came and then wrote this magnificent story about how divine fishing is. And because we are junkies for good feelings, he deduced logically fishing must be good. And what the attachment does is make fishing look delicious. Attachment exaggerates the delicious aspects of the object. So he was a fisherman all his life and he never once saw suffering. His mummy went fishing with him one time. She couldn't bear it. All she could see was the suffering of the fish. He literally couldn't see it. They saw the same fish in the same boat, but his attachment had a big elaborate story and he got good feelings every time. And this is the point about feeling. That's in fact due to his past virtue, but the tragedy is it's triggered in relation to doing a negative action. So he tips all his good virtuous karmas down the toilet. So feeling is such a powerful one. So because we're junkies for good feelings, if it feels good, we think the thing that caused it must be good. It doesn't follow. That's the point I'm saying. Do you understand my point? Okay. So if you do have an intuitive feeling that helping others is good, wow, baby, go for it. But you have the intuitive feeling that fishing is wonderful, question it. Do you understand? What else? Yes, Pablo.
The more you talk about karma, the more I think that I need some teaching about what reincarnation is and how does it do.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk simply, but the actual understanding of the mechanics and the technology of it clearly is highly sophisticated. It's like understanding how does E equals MC squared work. That's the technicality of it. But you learn the principles first, So basically speaking, like I said before, we take the view that your consciousness is a continuity of mental moments, a river of mental energy, programmed with everything you put in it. At the time before your last death, due to certain conditions, like I said, we can deduce that your death was fairly happy, fairly peaceful. Because when the mind is peaceful, that can trigger one of your virtuous karmic seeds. So we can deduce that one of your virtuous non-killing karmic seeds, like I said with Gem, that you'd probably practice a spiritual path in the past in the context of living in vows of morality. That's really tasty seeds. One of those was triggered, which instantly then help trigger the other tendencies in your mind, your tendencies to be this and that, experiences, all the other karmas, all ready and programmed, ready to take effect. So then you eventually die. You'll die a very happy death. You'll be very pleased and very happy when you die. And then you'll wake up in this subtle kind of in-between state. They call it like a dream state. It's called the intermediate state. The experience of it is just like a dream. But that life's over, that finished over, and then you're waiting for your next rebirth. Driven. The main driver of all of this, and this is where Buddha's view of attachment goes to very deep levels, the main driver of this entire process is this powerful energy of attachment. Attachment has the function of grasping at things, attachment has the function of exaggerating deliciousness, and attachment has the function of looking forward to something. We're always propelling forward. Do you understand? So attachment it's already programmed for your new mummy and daddy. So it's almost like, I'm joking saying it this way, but in the intermediate state, it's almost like you're twiddling your thumbs waiting for your new mummy and daddy to come along and have sex so you can get your next life. Because you've created you've programmed, ready for it, waiting for it to come. And it's never more than a few weeks. They'll hop into bed and that second you'll be driven by intense attachment and run to that egg and sperm. and then all the karma will start to ripen, and out you came, and here you are. I mean, that's one way of describing it.
So basically, it's your soul that keeps jumping from body to body.
That's right, but except they don't use the word soul. It's your consciousness, programmed with your tendencies. Yes, going from life to life. So the whole point is, the Buddha says this is samsara, driven by attachment and delusions and negative karma. So we keep creating more wheels of life. We've got to cut that by giving up attachment, giving up delusions, giving up anger, giving up killing, giving up bad ethics, and thus getting rid of those seeds in the mind. And then virtue becomes prevailing, and then we stop creating new rebirths eventually.
So basically, my consciousness was jumping from
Life to life to life, programmed by your actions. No one's doing it to you. And if you looked at your mind right now, if you had clairvoyance, you'll be able to see that you've got thousands upon thousands of lives already lined up, programmed, waiting to come.
when was it originated?
There can't be a start. I'm sorry to disappoint you.
Yeah, because if we keep going back, at certain point.
No, I know. We all want that. We all want to have that view. We all have that view. The Buddha would say that's not rational. This planet, yes. Planets and universes come and go. Bodies come and go. Things come and go. But Buddha would say that consciousness is, plural, trillions upon individual consciousnesses. There's that in the universe, and then there is matter, the four elements. They necessarily have to be beginningless, because all of them are driven by the natural law of cause and effect. Karma is an example of cause and effect. So everything is driven by the law of cause and effect. So if you started the analysis, and this is matter, let's use the four elements, and you know that if you think of this cup, it came from previous stuff, which came from previous. And if you keep going, you're going to get back to what we call the Big Bang, isn't it? But then as Dalai Lama said one time, when he has all these discussions with scientists, Big Bang, no problem. Just not the first Big Bang, that's all. So even this universe, you began at some point, the package came together, but the matter came from previous and the mind came from previous. But we want a first moment. And that's how, with respect to Christians and Muslims, they've solved that problem by saying God made it all. And if you're a naughty boy in school and say, well, who created God? Be quiet. But it's a valid question. So the Buddha would say, if the whole universe runs according to the law of cause and effect, logically, you cannot find a thing that was the first cause. Because how can you have a thing that exists that didn't have a previous cause? You can't.
When was everything? At the Big Bang time, was everything all was one.
I know, but that
Was different.
no, I know, but the Buddha wouldn't talk like that. He would say that that big moment is a series of coming together, an explosion. Like the first moment of a cup, you can have that. The first moment of anything. But it has to have previous causes. And those things have to have previous causes. And those things have to have previous causes. How can you have a thing that doesn't have a previous cause? That's the point to think about, logically, intellectually. It's not comfortable.
That's the definition of Big Bang. There was nothing before.
But that's the point the Buddha says is nonsense. But no, not how. It is not how it is at all. It's some speculation of some scientists. Forgive me. But even intellectually, how can there be? If you posit the law of cause and effect, how can there be a thing that didn't have a previous cause? That's the thing to contemplate. Just that point is the thing to contemplate.
Because also mathematics and
No. I'm not discussing that. I'm not discussing all that. I'm not discussing all that. I'm discussing this simple point as a theory, as a concept.
the theory, everything was generated after this explosion.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking before it.
There was no before because there was no time.
No. That's a mistaken view. Buddha would suggest there can't be. All I'm saying, no, you haven't got the point yet.
No.
Just a simple, forget Big Bang, okay?
Yeah.
Forget Big Bang. But the simple principle, we say cause and effect, don't we?
Yeah.
You accept?
Yeah.
And effect is the fruit of a previous cause. Now that cause was the effect of a previous cause. You're correct. So just keep it there and think about and meditate on that simple concept. If cause and effect is the law that runs everything, that is natural, how can there be a thing that's called the first cause? What was its cause? You have to have one if you posit cause and effect. That's the contemplation to do. Just intellectually. That's it. Meditate on that. Just there. Good, thank you. I think we can finish. Don't you think? Oh, come on. Well, then, we'll finish with a meditation. Shall we do that? Where? Another question. Where? Who had one? Sasha.
Okay, I can
No, please, sweetie pie, you ask.
I think to your question, I think in Western world, maybe agreed, there's a linear thinking, start and beginning.
Yes.
Isn't Buddhism more a circle?
No. No. That's an idea that people have, but it's a bit cosmic. No. Past, present, future. It's linear. I mean, it's conventional. We're only looking at conventional reality here. Buddhism's got this whole description of ultimate reality, which we haven't even gone into yet, and all this leads to that. We're talking ordinary reality here. Cause, effect, good, bad, up, down, this, that, past, future, present. Simple terms that we all can agree upon. So normal conventional universe for the Buddha is past, present, future. Linear. Yeah. Yes.
Question to that. So I also thought about your question.
Yes.
When you say that clairvoyant people can see the future, it's because
Yes.
they also apply linear thinking and they can see future because of the present karma.
Yeah, well, it's really, you think about it. Okay, if you're a really good gardener, a brilliant gardener, and I know nothing about botany, never heard of it, never thought it even existed, right? And you show me your hectare of ground out there, and to me it looks barren. But you know you've planted lots of seeds in it, because you're a good gardener, right? Now, you can proceed to give me a very clear vision of how it will look in 20 years. Do you agree with that? Why? What's the reason you can give me a vision of how it will look in 20 years? No, but give it simple reasons, simple practical words. Why can you give me a vision of how your garden will look in 20 years? Of what? Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'll go, wow, you're clairvoyant. And you'll say, no, I just know the law of karma, the law of cause and effect. So the point is this. We also know that a million other laws can intervene, like the law of weather going all berserk and snowstorms and mean people coming in ripping out your garden. They can also occur too. But given the laws, we live our lives like this. You do the architecture plan of a 100-story building. You can tell me how to look in 6 months. Oh, I don't know this maths and engineering and architecture. I'll say the same thing. Wow, you're a genius. It's called simply cause and effect. You sow the seed, you'll get the fruit. Well, that's all Buddha's saying. And if you look at the present, you can know the causes, and you look at what you do now, you can see the future. It's very practical. Do you understand? Okay. What? Where? Yes, go, darling. Start again, darling.
How and if free will exists
Well, it's interesting, this free will business. Let's do a little analysis of it. So let's give the appropriate respect to that philosophical concept and give it back to its source, and the source is called Jesus Christ. But everybody talks about it like it's a scientific thing. It's people who are atheists talk about free will. But I don't know why. It came from Jesus. And Jesus says that God made you like him and then gave you the ability to choose. Now, I don't talk like that. I'm a Buddhist. I wouldn't talk this way. And that's what free will is. So I don't know what you mean by free will. So now that's the Christian teaching. Give me your view of free will, if you think it's something that's real. Oh, good. That's easy. That's easy. So do we have the ability to make choices? Is that your question? What makes you think we don't? Don't you spend your life making choices? But don't you, do you look in your garden, okay, in general, in principle, do you accept that it's possible to pick a flower? In general, in principle, flowers exist. And in general, you have the ability to pick a rose. Is that true? Do you understand about pick? Okay. Do you have the ability to pick a rose from a garden, in general? That's called the freedom to choose, isn't it? Now, what is that dependent on? What is that ability to pick a rose dependent on? Thank you very much, Petal. So if you look in your garden and you see there are no roses, you can't pick a rose, can you? So if there is a rose there, you have the freedom to pick it, but where did the rose come from? Whose garden is it? Yours. So who grew it? So that's a cause for you right now, the ability to choose to pick a rose. So everybody has in general the freedom to not be angry. Do you accept that? in principle. You have the free will to not be angry. But what if you've practiced anger all your life? You have never tasted patience. You've never heard of patience. Your attachment, your ability to be angry is so intense. In theory, you do have the potential to not be angry, but to choose not to. But effectively, at the moment, because the conditions are so strong, you do not have any damn choice at all. But you have it in principle. Are you with me now a little bit? It's more nuanced than that. So everything has causes. So the free will one assumes there's no previous cause. That's a bizarre idea. Everything has causes. So in theory, everybody can choose not to kill, lie, steal. I mean, give an example. One woman I met at a course told me about how she'd been married to a fisherman, fell in love with a fisherman, so she helped him with his business. He went fishing, she loved it, she loved with his husband. And then one day she went fishing, used to go fishing with her girlfriend in the big deep sea, get these big deep sea fish. And they loved doing this her and her girlfriend. And one day she got this big fish, they got the big fish and it came way from down deep, comes up into the boat. And the thing is, once they do that, you can't put it back because it's like deep sea diving. It ruins their guts, right? They've got the fish. And then suddenly, she said, another big fish reared up into the water, circled the boat, looking into the boat. And she was convinced it was the wife of the fish. She said, I stopped fishing from that second. You with me? So that condition was the condition that was triggered her ability to stop killing, and it needed that. But before that, it didn't come. Another example, our friend, Australian friends who run Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive in Massachusetts, okay. And every year they do a special practice, lots of Buddhists do this, on special days in the lunar calendar, they save lots of animals. So they always buy lobsters. They go to Maine where they buy lobsters and they save 462 lobsters, whatever. Then they do special practice and they release them on lobsters, okay? Well, this particular was on the television, the news. So this particular group of lobster fishermen in Maine, when they saw it, they were so offended. How dare these pathetic Buddhists insult our profession? So they called the television news and they purposely caught 462 lobsters just to prove to these Buddhists. So in other words, one woman saw a fish dying and it triggered her wish never to kill again. Another guy saw fish dying and it increased his wish to kill. So it all depends on what's in the mind. There's a dependent arising. But in theory, everyone's got the choice to stop killing. You understand? Good. Okay. Everything's dependent arising. I think that's enough. So we'll do a meditation. Just close your eyes. We'll talk about this more in depth tomorrow. There's different kinds of meditation. There's one kind that's called concentration, which we did mention. So we're going to do another variation of that. We did it for a few minutes before, which is merely to just watch your mind. The typical one that we do start with as Buddhists is you watch your breath, because that's easy. But this is a bit more complicated, a bit more weird. It seems a bit strange, but we do our best. And this is the beginning of what's called Mahamudra meditation, which we'll talk about tomorrow. So what you've got to do is just simply have your body comfortable. I'll go through the eight points about the meditation posture, which is coming from the experience of all the great yogis, okay? So the first one is ideal to be in full lotus position. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says best to start your meditation session like that. Even if you can't stay in it, it creates the cause, the auspiciousness of being able to do that in the future when you become a more advanced meditator. Because there's something about how that aligns the energies, the subtler energies of the body very nicely. If you can do that, fantastic. If not, sit half lotus, one instep on the other thigh. If not, ordinary cross-legged. If not, like some of us, in a chair. That's the first point. Second one, your back. It can't be straight. It's not straight, but upright. It's really important. Think of all your skeleton, all the bones, really upright. But all the soft bits, the muscles, all the soft bits, relaxed, very relaxed, hanging on the bones. That's a perfect way to meditate. Have your stomach muscles relaxed, your shoulders upright but relaxed. It's a perfect combination. Upright, but the soft parts all relaxed. The third bit is your hands, and the typical mudra or gesture that we're taught, and there are many variations, is your left hand like this, underneath the right, thumbs touching like that. Your arms away from your body. But you can do it this way, whatever you wish, it's okay. So now the final piece, the crucial piece, is your head. Slightly tilted forward, not thrust back. that makes the mind agitated. Slightly tilted forward, chin tucked in a bit. Your lips slightly apart, which seems odd. Do that. And even more odd, the tip of your tongue resting behind the top teeth, just near the palate. All this position is practical. The great yogis who meditate for day upon day upon day have found that having the tip of the tongue behind the top teeth near the palate prevents you from dribbling. It's very practical. From having to swallow your spit all the time. Some of them meditate day and night. The next bit is your eyes, looking down along your nose as if you're looking at the ground. So the great yogis can keep their eyes open because their concentration is so good they don't get distracted. But we're probably not like that. So have your eyes lightly closed and your lids just lightly closed, So now settle into this position now, okay? And then forget all about it because your body doesn't meditate. Your mind does. So now for 3 or 4 quality minutes, we're going to pay attention to whatever pops up in our mind. So there are 1,000 thoughts a second popping up in our mind, but we don't ever pay attention. So here, the idea is it's almost like part of you is stepping back. And attention, there's a part of your mind called attention, one of the neutral bits. It's called attention. So just simply imagine this part of your mind watching all the crazy bits that come and go. And you don't have to analyze them. You don't have to conjure up a conversation. You don't have to decide to think something. You don't have to decide to not think something. It's like you're watching a group of people and all doing and saying what they want, but you're not involved in it. Think of it like this. So with strong determination, you're going to pay attention to whatever pops up in your mind. So what will happen is your mind will start spacing out or whatever. Just alert yourself back to the attention and just keep watching whatever pops up in your mind. That's the job. 3 or 4 minutes, quality minutes. Just don't space out. Just pay attention. Keep your mind sharp and alert. Don't space out. Sharp and alert. Just watch. stay focused. So now we finish with a little aspiration. One of these many prayers, very big thinking bodhisattva prayers. So we think how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could abide in equanimity, free of attachment, ignorance, and anger. May they abide so. I will make this happen. This is the attitude of the bodhisattva, which we'll talk about tomorrow. This brave attitude of responsibility to help sentient beings, which comes from the wisdom wing. So I will make this happen. Please, Guru Buddha, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May they be free. I will make this happen. Please, Guru Buddha, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they have them. I will make this happen. Please, Guru Buddha, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were never parted from higher rebirths and liberations, excellent bliss. May they never be parted. I will make this happen. Please, Guru Deity, bless me to be able. Guru Buddha, bless me to be able to do this. And then we just delight this day since we started. As many thoughts as each of us has had is as many seeds we planted in this mind of ours, and they won't go astray. So we think how amazing from this listening, discussing, questioning, meditating. How fantastic. So may we continue to nourish these seeds with our efforts from this moment forward. Whether you're called Buddhist or not, it doesn't matter, I don't care. Keep working on our mind. Keep never giving up on our marvelous potential. Keep watching our body, speech and mind so that we eventually do develop our amazing potential for our sake and the sake of others. Jangchob semcho grinpoche ma ke panam ke gyochig ke panyam pa me payang gong ne gong du pa ba sho gewa di nyu du dag lama sangye drub gyurne Drowa chi kyang malupa Dei sala ke pasho Jangchob semcho grinpoche ma ke panam ke gyochig ke panyam pa me payang Gong ne gong du pa ba sho. Thank you so much, everybody. Okay? All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think we should. Let's have a good photo. Yeah, let's do that. Good idea. Where we all sit. Well, why don't I sit there and then you stand on the chair and take a photo? Or you won't fit us in, will you? Better than, okay. Well, you won't fit in all the sides. You have to do a panoramic.